Chapter 81. The corpses of the ogres were salted with lime and hung on the walls of the town. This was actually a strategic deterrent. Other monsters and humans would be scared when they saw the corpses. In the northern wastelands, this was even more of a deterrent to other tribes. If more tribes migrated here, most of them would avoid this place after seeing the corpses of the ogres, unless they were much stronger than the ogres. After eliminating the ogres, Northgard Castle was filled with cheers. However, after a short celebration, the town returned to its original state. Because the planting season was coming to an end, all the land in the territory had been put on hold for a while. All the land was used for farming. Of the 12,000 mu of land in the territory, more than 8,000 mu were planted with potatoes. The remaining 2,000 mu were planted with winter wheat. This was specifically requested by Chris. Xion had bought it from Cult City last time. According to Chris, a lord's diet must include fine flour. As for the last 2,000 mu of land, they were all planted with sugar beets. These sugar beet seeds were all collected from the wild. It could be said that more than 90% of the sugar beets within 30 kilometers of Sullen's territory had been collected. The yield of the sugar beets was still unknown, but it shouldn't be too low. The sugar beets that grew in the wild were the size of small radishes. The yield of 1 mu of sugar beets was probably close to that of potatoes. Territory farmland frowny face quantity 12,000 mu. Current status: planting complete type 2,000 mu of winter wheat, 2,000 mu of sugar beets, 8,000 mu of potato diseases and pests. Health fertilization: little or no maturity. Winter wheat 237 days, potato 104 days, sugar beets 352 days. Agricultural special effect: none. After seeing that the sugar beets would take a year to mature, Su Len was a little anxious. After all, the sugar trade had just started. The demand for sugar would definitely increase in the future. The sugar beets collected from the wild wouldn't last long. Only by planting them on a large scale could they provide sufficient production. Without sugar beets, there was no way to extract sugar. Sullen's sugar trade would probably end prematurely. There were other ways to speed up the growth of plants. For example, the elves had ways to speed up the growth of plants. However, the elves hadn't appeared for hundreds of years. The other option was for wizards to cast spells that could speed up the growth of plants, or druids who were proficient in planting. Of course, they could also ask the priests of the goddess of earth for help. They also had spells that could speed up the growth of plants. However, these methods were not very useful for Su Len since his territory was so remote. For the time being, there was no way to speed up the growth of plants. Su Len could only continue to collect sugar beets in the wild. At the same time, he limited the amount of sugar he could trade. He would start implementing it after Xion returned. After the farmland in the territory was planted, the construction of the town was once again put on the agenda. Previously, because of the rush to plant the farmland, the construction of the town was basically stagnant. Now that the farmland was planted, only a small number of people were needed to maintain it. The extra people could start the construction of the town. The dozen or so camel beasts obtained from the ogre tribe were not killed. Although they had bad tempers, they were strong and could carry a lot of weight. They were very useful for transporting goods or building roads. The dozen or so beasts weighed several tons, so it was very convenient for them to transport wood and stone. Su Len specially made a few huge stone rollers and let the camel beasts roll them back and forth when they were building roads. The effect was not inferior to the professional road rollers in his previous life. With the addition of the camel beasts, the construction of the roads in the territory was very fast. In addition to the roads, the construction of Sullen's Lord's Castle also sped up. Due to the small size of the town, Sullen's Lord's Castle was not built too big. Apart from the town hall, there was also his residence, a small drill ground, and a garden where he lived. The garden was built with pure white marble. Su Len specially found these marbles in the nearby Sierra de Lotus. Su Len also used stone to mud to remove the impurities in the stone, so the marbles were as white as jade. According to Sullen's idea, he also wanted to build a fountain. However, he did not have a skilled sculptor, so the statue in the fountain could not be made. He did not want to just find a random statue, so he could only wait for the sculptors in the territory to improve their skills. A week later, Sullen's Lord's Castle was finally completed. Congratulations, host. The Lord's Castle is completed. The city management interface has been opened. Lord's Castle, simple. This is a simple and crude Lord's Castle. The bonuses to the territory are limited. Note: a dignified and majestic Lord's Castle can better set off the Lord's dignity. Dignity +2, Security +2, Defense +2, Popular +1, Comfort +1, City Management Interface. City: Northern Fortress, Small Town, Location. Northern Wastelands Popular. 90. The highest popular rating is 100. When the popular rating is lower than 60, the townspeople will express doubts about the Lord. When the popular rating is lower than 40, the townspeople will begin to leave. When the popular rating is lower than 30, the townspeople will have a few chances of riots. When the popular rating is lower than 20, the townspeople will rebel. Please treat your people well. Tax: 0, can set tax standards. Currently lacking a tax officer. Income: 2,000 kinner, grain per year, 5,000 kinner, caravan trade, national treasury, 1,200 kinner, 8,000 units, grain, dried salted fish, 5327, dried meat, 1851, population, 812, includes barbarians, livestock, cattle, 117 bison, antelope cattle, 233, camel cattle, 17, horse cattle, 40 horses, sheriff, pending appointment, guard captain, pending appointment, garrison officer, pending appointment, mayor, to be appointed, tax collector, to be appointed, steward of the castle, Chrissy, matron of waiting, Chrissy, manager of caravan, Jean's social security. 80. The higher the social security, the more stable the territory is. A safe town can increase the sense of belonging of the townspeople. If the security is low, it will cause chaos in the town. Prosperity. 12. Please increase the commercial activities of the town as soon as possible. The more prosperous the town is, the more people will be attracted to live there. Population required to upgrade. 5,000 current population growth. 2. 1% troops. Barbarian guards, 71. Longbow archers, 5 town defense. Beginner stone wall territory specialties. Sugar, dried salted fish, dried meat, potatoes, fur, ironware territory buildings. Mayor's mansion, houses, barracks, market, warehouses, farmlands, blacksmiths, port, mines. With the territory management system, Sulen could clearly see the current state of the territory. It was a lot easier to manage the territory. The main problem now was the income and population. Other than the sugar trade, the territory's income was almost zero. The population was the foundation of the territory's growth. He was severely lacking in population. Relying on natural growth was too slow. Luckily, he still had the recruitment order. However, the recruitment order was too hard to come by. Sulen needed to find other ways to increase the population. Chapter 82. Master, the rum you mentioned has been brewed. Would you like to have a taste? Chris asked as she walked over with a bottle of wine. The last time Xion came back from Cult City, he bought a batch of slaves along the way. Among them, there were a few slaves who knew how to make wine. Due to the lack of technology, the waste honey, which contained a lot of sugar, could not be extracted into white sugar. It was a waste to just throw it away, so Sulen tried to use the waste honey to make rum. In his previous life, rum was created from waste honey. At that time, South America planted large amounts of sugar cane, and after the sugar was extracted, a large amount of waste honey was produced. The plantation owners invented the use of waste honey to make rum. At that time, due to technical issues, the fresh water carried by the sea for a long time would easily spoil. Most importantly, rum could cure sepsis. Therefore, many ships carried a large amount of alcohol. Alcohol could be stored for a long time without spoiling, and it could prevent the sailors from getting sepsis. Rum spread all over the world with the voyage, and the use of waste honey to make rum became another source of income for the plantation owners. It was good to use waste honey to make rum. Without using food, they could obtain a large amount of rum. This was good news for Sulen, which was short on food. In this era, there were very few forms of entertainment. Even in Kalen City in the south, the only entertainment among the nobles was hunting or banquets. There were also very few bards or circus performances, and even fewer forms of entertainment for the commoners. The most common form of entertainment was to go to a tavern and have a drink. There were many barbarians in Sulen, all of them strong and energetic. In order to let them vent their excess energy, Sulen specially built a drill ground for them to spar. It was the same for the alcohol now. There was another reason. The trade in the territory had begun. As time passed, more and more caravans would arrive, and they would definitely bring a large number of mercenaries and caravan guards. These people would definitely need to find entertainment. There were no seafood merchants in Sulen's territory, and there were no young ladies who sold abalone. There was still a long way to go. Therefore, they could only come to the tavern. Mercenaries and guards were paid well, and they spent money quickly. As long as the tavern was built, it would definitely become an important source of income for the camp. There was no reason not to do something like this that could solve the problem of wasted honey, increase the number of entertainment options, and even make money. Taking the rum, Sulen smelled it first. There was a faint aroma of alcohol. He poured the rum out. The rum was amber in color. He tasted it slightly. The taste was not bad. The taste was refreshing and the smell was fragrant. It was much better than the ale he had drunk before. The ale that Su Luen bought before was cheap and tasted a little sour, so the merchants added a lot of water into it. This kind of ale was also the most popular in the tavern because it was cheap enough. It only cost 2 copper nars to drink a cup. It could be said that the ale was actually water with a little bit of alcohol, which was far inferior to the rum. "This wine tastes pretty good," Sulen said in a good mood as he put down the cup. "This kind of rum is the best one they've ever made." Chris picked up Sulen's unfinished glass and tasted it. "How much is the cost?" Sulen asked. If the cost of this wine was too high, he could only sell it as a high-end wine and continue to make cheap wines. "According to your instructions, the rum is brewed using waste honey. A lot of water is added to dilute it, and then yeast is added to ferment it. The cost of a barrel of 100 liters of rum is about 2 kinner," Chris said, as if she was familiar with it. Sulen did a quick calculation. This price still did not have any price advantage compared to ale. "Master, this rum can be diluted with water. The one you're drinking is not diluted," Chris explained with a smile. "This kind of wine can be diluted by 1-fold. The taste will be much lighter, but it's still much better than ale. Then dilute it by 1-fold. You can calculate the price." Sulen agreed immediately. Adding water into the wine was a normal operation in this era. Of course, high-end wines would not do this. Make this rum into a low-grade wine and a high-end wine. Change the high-end wine to a better name and mix the taste. "We'll sell the 2 wines together," Sulen said. "Okay. I'll go and tell them to do it." Chris nodded. "Right. Give each of the slaves who make the wine 30 points. Give them 50 points for making this wine," Sulen ordered. "Tell them to mix the wine as soon as possible." Chris nodded and left with the rum. Next, the slaves quickly mixed the 2 wines according to Sulen's request. The high-end rum was clearer and almost transparent. It had a strange fruity smell. The taste was refreshing and sweet, and the taste was sweet and fragrant. It was very good. The taste of the low-grade rum was much worse, but it was refreshing and had a translucent reddish-brown color. From its appearance to its taste, it was still much better than ale. At the same time, the cost of producing it was only 10 silver nars per barrel, which was already close to the price of ale. The high-end rum was more expensive. After mixing, this kind of rum cost 2 kinner per barrel. Sulen was going to build a glass factory in his territory and bottle it for sale. He was not going to sell a bottle more than 2 kinner per bottle. 1 barrel could hold at least 200 bottles. Sulen also came up with a name for this wine, cold dew wine. He also made up a story to raise the price of this wine. This was a common marketing method in his previous world, but it was definitely the first time he used it in this world. As long as the story was moving enough and the wine tasted good, this kind of wine would be able to sell quickly. Of course, if Sulen had enough connections, he could let the king use this kind of wine in court banquets. That way, the effect would be even better. But if he had enough connections, why would he come to this godforsaken place to explore? After the wine was made, Sulen immediately began to build a tavern in the town. The location of the tavern had been chosen long ago, and it was ready to start construction. The progress of the tavern was very fast. It only took 2 days to build a tavern that could accommodate 70 to 80 people. Tavern. A town building. A lively tavern can let people relax after a day of work and have a drink. The tavern's appearance makes the town more prosperous. The tavern's existence will attract people who like to drink. Prosperity +5, happiness +5, information +5, security -2. Special effect. Chance to attract wandering heroes to stay here. Chapter 83. Attract wandering heroes? After seeing this information, Sullen's breathing instantly became heavier. He only had 3 heroes in his territory: Johnson, Boulder, and Chris. None of them were weak. If he could recruit heroes, the tavern's value would be even higher. After arranging for people to open the tavern, Sulen purposely went to the tavern to sit for a while. After experiencing the tavern for a while, he ordered the person in charge to collect information in the tavern and pay attention to some strange people. After the tavern opened, Sulen found that the barbarian warriors liked the tavern more than the drill ground, so Sulen had no choice but to restrict them. In order to deal with the upcoming trade, Sulen built a barracks near the trading market. It was a place for soldiers to rest. Next to the barracks was the trading market's tax office. The tax office was very simple now. The territory had not even appointed a tax officer, so Chris had to take up the post. Fortunately, there were no other taxes in the territory except for trade with caravans. This was also why Sulen had not appointed a tax officer. After all, there was no tax. Merchant caravans would definitely be taxed if they came to do business. In the fief, any transaction worth more than 100 gold coins would have to be filed with the tax office and paid a certain amount of tax. If anyone tried to take advantage of the loophole and purposely limit a transaction to less than 100 gold coins, they would be punished 10 times the amount. All trades had to be done in the trading market. Trading outside the market was considered illegal. The goods would be confiscated by the soldiers in charge of the market security. Coming out of the tavern, Sulen saw Xian with a face full of dust. "Monseigneur, it's great to see you. I was just about to report to you." Xian was overjoyed when he saw Sulen. He quickly walked to Sulen and bowed. "Monseigneur, the caravan has returned safely to the territory. All the goods are undamaged. This time we bought 300 slaves from Cult City. We also earned 1,500 kinner from this trade." "So much?" Sulen paused for a moment, then took the bill and flipped through it. The biggest item on the bill was the white sugar. Xian had brought a total of 50 caddies of white sugar to Cult City for trade. The rest were furs and other things. They were sold for less than 500 kinner in total. 50 caddies of sugar sold for nearly 3,000 kinner in Calent. After that, he spent more than 1,000 kinner to purchase supplies in Cult City. He spent more than 1,000 kinner to purchase 300 slaves. After paying taxes, he still had 1,500 kinner left. The average price of the white sugar that Jean sold was about 60 kinner per caddy. Compared to the distribution of the white sugar, the price was double. In the end, the white sugar was sold out in less than half a day. Moreover, there were many nobles and merchants who did not manage to buy the white sugar and wanted to pre-order it. However, without Sullen's order, Jean did not dare to accept. "It seems that the nobles have quite a high demand for white sugar," Sulen thought to himself. Although he was mentally prepared, he still underestimated the nobles' love for white sugar. These nobles who lived extravagant lives had reached a very high level in their pursuit of all kinds of material comforts. The long period of peace had caused them to become more and more extravagant. "Well done," Sulen praised as he patted Jean's shoulder. Xion was very satisfied with his current job. He had gone from a penniless mercenary who lived on the wind and dew to a merchant who worked for a noble. This huge change made him extremely grateful to Su Luin, the man who had bestowed him with all this. "This is all thanks to your guidance. I only did the most basic things," Jean said respectfully. As one of the first mercenaries hired by Su Len to expand his territory, Jean had personally witnessed how Su Len cut through all obstacles and established a firm foothold in this dangerous wilderness. Then, Su Len led the barbarian warriors to victory after victory. In just 2 short months, he had built a town from nothing and excavated a gold mine in this barren land. Now, Jean believed that he was witnessing the rise of a legendary figure. Being able to follow a legendary figure was also a great benefit to him. Perhaps he could use this opportunity to rise from a commoner to a new noble. "Jean, no need to be humble. I know your hard work." Su Len nodded at him. After working as a merchant for a while, Jean's negotiation and trading skills had improved. This was the most obvious change. "Monseigneur, only a few of the nobles we bought this time have skills. The rest of the slaves can only be serfs or handymen." "I'm sorry, Monseigneur. Most of the artisan slaves with skills have been bought by the nobles." Slaves with skills were in high demand in the slave market. They were basically monopolized by the merchants and nobles. Others could only pick up the leftovers from them. Su Len was able to buy dozens of artisan slaves because of his noble status. There are more than 300 slaves. Divide the artisan slaves according to their skills. As for the rest, let them build roads. Su Len quickly arranged the slaves' jobs. "Monseigneur, many people have been asking about our supply of sugar in Cult. I followed your instructions and told a few merchants. They've decided to come to our territory to trade." "All right, I understand." Su Len released the news to attract other merchants. He wanted more people to compete for the sugar. Of course, other than the sugar, the arrival of many merchants would also lead to the discovery of the territory's commerce. This was very important to Sulen's territory. As for the sugar, he planned to take out 500 pounds of sugar every month to trade. The 500 pounds of sugar would be divided into 5 portions and auctioned off one by one. The highest bidder would win. To prevent the merchants from secretly colluding with each other to suppress the price, Su Len used a secret auction. The price was kept secret. Each person only had one chance to bid. This way, even if they had discussed the price beforehand and divided the shares, it would be useless. In order to not be eliminated, they had to raise the price. The merchants did not follow Jean to Northtown Castle. They were prepared to come together. For the upcoming trade, Su Len gave the slaves priority to build roads to the market. At the same time, the roads in the territory began to expand. In this era, it cost a lot to build roads. Su Len required the roads in the territory to be at least stone. Some places even needed to be paved with stone slabs. The roads would not be dusty on a sunny day or muddy on a rainy day. Chapter 84. Apart from roads, Su Len also started to build a water supply system for his territory. Although he had been in this world for more than 10 years, Su Len was still not used to living without running water. In this era, most cities relied on well water, and well water could be bought with money. Having a sweet well in the city was a stable source of income. Of course, some poor people would choose to fetch water from the river, while the nobles would choose to get water from the nearby mountain springs. Because it wasn't easy to get water, people in this era rarely took a bath. It was considered hygienic for a commoner to take a bath once a month. Su Luin couldn't accept his barbarian warriors not taking a bath for a month. These energetic burly men had to patrol and sweep the wastelands every day, so it was inevitable that they would be covered in dust and sweat. Therefore, Su Len forced them to bathe every day. Of course, this request was unanimously supported by the barbarian women. Now, even if Su Len did not supervise them, the barbarian women would supervise their husbands. If they did not bathe, they would have to sleep outside for the night. When Su Len came to the riverside to inspect, He saw a group of naked men and children jumping into the red sand river to bathe. The weather was not cold at this time, so it was not bad to bathe here. It would not be good if it started snowing. Sulen planned to build a water supply system as well as some public baths. Magic in this world could do many things that technology could not do in his previous world, but the number of wizards made it difficult to spread magic. Sulen planned to build a water supply system that was similar to the Landshau water wheel in ancient times. With the mechanical manipulation skill, Sulen was very familiar with the principles and manufacturing of various machines. He planned to build 3 or 4 Landshau water wheels on the Red Sand River. First, the water wheel would raise the water in the river, then send the water through the water supply channel to the city's reservoir. The reservoir had to be built at a high place, or the water would not be able to flow. The aqueducts outside the city used the elevated aqueducts of ancient Rome in his previous life. In order to ensure that these aqueducts were sturdy and durable, Sulen used mud to stone to reinforce these aqueducts. The aqueduct was built from the river all the way to the outskirts of the city. Sulen thought about it for a while and decided to build the aqueduct outside of the city. The main reason was the expansion of the city. The northern fortress was not that big at the moment. It was only 500 meters long and wide. It was not crowded with thousands of people living in it. However, as the population of the territory increased, the current size would not be enough. Therefore, Sulen had already planned to expand the town. This time, Sulen planned to double the size of the town in all directions. This way, the area would increase by 4 times and upgrade the town into a large town that could accommodate 5,000 people. The length of the aqueduct from the Redwater River to the city was more than 5 kilometers. Because the city was much higher than the river level, these aqueducts had to be built as elevated aqueducts. It was very difficult to build an elevated aqueduct. There were no architects in the territory who could build such a big project. Sulen had to do it himself. After all, he had been in this world for 10 years and had received proper aristocratic education, even though he was only an observer. The education of the aristocrats in this world was very strict. They had to learn etiquette, geography, horsemanship, literature, architecture, history, martial arts, and so on. Sulen had learned all this knowledge seriously. Although he did not spend too much time on architecture, he was confident that he could build an elevated aqueduct with the theories from his previous life. The aqueduct was about 60 centimeters wide and the reservoir was 50 centimeters deep. The highest point of the aqueduct was 30 meters from the ground. The diameter of the water wheel was 35 meters. In order to build such a water wheel, Sulen personally brought people to the Sierra de Lotus to cut down the iron oaks that had been growing for hundreds of years. Iron oaks lived in cold environments. The wood was hard and did not easily deform. It was also resistant to corrosion and did not burn easily. It also grew very slowly. It would take at least 200 to 300 years to grow to 40 to 50 meters tall. The water wheel built with this kind of wood was light and durable. After spending a few days cutting down 8 iron oaks in the Sierra de Lotus, Sulen brought his people back with him. In order to cut down the iron oaks, Sulen brought people to exterminate 2 Jackalan tribes. Sulen had seen the Landshau water wheel in his previous life at the water wheel park. When he saw it up close for the first time, he was very shocked. The water wheel, which was 20 to 30 meters tall, was driven by the flow of water. It did not rely on steam or electricity to raise the water level of the river to 20 to 30 meters. The structure of the water wheel was not very complicated. According to the memories of his previous life, Sulen combined them with his mechanical control skills and finally built the first Landshau water wheel. The huge water wheel stood on the Red Sand River. The rapid flow of water pushed the water wheel to turn. The water tank on the outer ring of the water wheel was filled during this process. As the water wheel turned, the water rose to 30 meters in the air and poured into the aqueduct. As long as the water wheel was not damaged and the Red Sand River was not cut off, the water could be transported continuously. Water wheel. A giant water wheel built with iron oaks. The structure is ingenious, sturdy, and durable. It is a very good tool to carry water. Sturdiness plus 10, abrasion plus 10, water carrying plus 10, power plus 15. The aqueduct was built with rocks. Because it had to reach a height of 30 meters, a very deep foundation was dug underneath. The construction of the aqueduct also required Sulan's personal command. In this era, there were very few adhesives used to glue walls together. Most of them used glutinous rice juice or volcanic ash cement. Glutinous rice juice required a lot of food, and Sulan did not want to waste it. Sulan could not afford to ship the volcanic ash cement here either, so he had to work hard himself. After every section was built, he would cast mud to stone on the aqueduct. After using the mud to rock spell, these rocks would completely fuse and no cracks could be seen. The effect was much better than that of the glutinous rice juice and cement. The effect was good, but it was too expensive. In Cult City, hiring a wizard who was proficient in mud to stone would cost at least 300 kinner per day. Even nobles could not afford this price. If Sulan really ran out of money in the future, he could also consider becoming an architect. Mud to stone could turn a 10-meter-long aqueduct into rocks every time he cast mud to stone. Sulan would cast the spell more than 10 times a day. He had spent a lot of effort on this water system. P.S. Thank you Eater Ku for your 1,000 Chidian coins tip. Thank you Ho Yi from Chong Yi's family for your 200 Chidian coins tip. Thank you NPC 123689 for your 100 Chidian coins tip. Thank you Ababababa for your 100 Chidian coins tip. Chapter 85. The water supply system had built a large reservoir outside the city. The water from the Red Sand River was not drinkable. Although the water was clear in this era, many people drank it directly. If there were dead animals upstream, the drinking water of the entire city would be threatened. One of the reasons Sulan built the reservoir was to disinfect the water. The reservoir would be lined with pebbles, fine sand, and charcoal to filter the water. Of course, these could only filter out the impurities in the water. Sulan also prepared a fine net made of pure silver. After a few steps of filtering and disinfecting, the water source would be safe. It would take a long time to complete the water supply system. While the water supply system was being built, the caravan from Calent City arrived. After Jean left Calent City, Fernan was the manager of the caravan sent by the Fiery Bird Chamber of Commerce to the Northern Fortress. At the same time, he was also the biggest merchant among the 8. The Skylark Chamber of Commerce, which had already cooperated with the Northern Fortress, was also among them. However, the Skylark Chamber of Commerce was only ranked 4th among the 8. Other than Robert from the Skylark Chamber of Commerce, there was another person Sulan knew. He was the manager of the Bauhinia Chamber of Commerce, Owen. Yes, he was the fatty that Sulan set up last time. When he came here to steal from Northtown Castle, he didn't want to pay any price. In the end, he was set up by Sulan and the barbarian warriors. He didn't expect that he would dare to come here to make a deal. Of course, Sulan wouldn't set him up on purpose. He needed Northtown Castle to prosper. It was better not to set people up. Of course, if someone thought Sulan was easy to bully, he wouldn't mind playing with them. Mr. Fernan, I think we should form an alliance and monopolize the sugar trade here. Yes, I think so too. As long as we can monopolize the sugar trade here, we can easily double our annual profit. I agree. The other managers all agreed. They already considered the sugar trade in Northtown Castle to be theirs. Since everyone agrees to monopolize the sugar trade, we need to divide some shares. Fernan nodded. Closely after that, Fernan glanced at the managers of the other 7 chambers of commerce before saying bluntly, I want 20% of the white sugar. You can negotiate the remaining 80% among yourselves. The other 7 chambers of commerce did not have any objections to this. Clearly, this was already the norm. Following this, the 7 chambers of commerce began to continuously negotiate and quarrel for a larger share, causing the entire scene to become extremely heated. Fernan didn't intend to interrupt. Instead, he took out a pair of delicate scissors and carefully trimmed his nails. It wasn't until the managers of these chambers of commerce decided on the shares that they began to speak. Since we have already agreed on the shares, then let's confirm the purchase price. Robert, how much did you pay for Kinner last time? 50 kinner a caddy. That's too expensive. We should ask him to lower the price. Owen said impatiently as soon as Robert finished his sentence. Yes, lower the price. I think we should lower it to at least 35 kinner before we can accept it. Another manager of the caravan agreed. You're oversimplifying the problem. In order to get a high price, he might be preparing to auction it off. Robert knew how difficult it was to deal with Chris, so he directly poured cold water on her. So what? We've already agreed on the price. If it's higher than that, we won't bid. Yes, let's do that. The group of people agreed. What if he's not willing to sell? One of them suddenly asked. Simple. If he dares to reject the deal, then we'll show him the power of our 8 chambers of commerce. I think he'll agree. The others laughed. As the 8 biggest chambers of commerce in Cult City, they controlled more than 60% of the city's trade. They had the right to say that. After the discussion, they held a small banquet before they went to prepare the caravan for the Northgard fortress. Sulen didn't know that the 8 chambers of commerce had already agreed to monopolize the sugar trade. Of course, even if he knew, he wouldn't care. In his opinion, the alliance of these people was not reliable at all. A small external force was all it would take for the alliance to fall apart. The 8 caravans arrived at Northgard Castle. Other than Robert, the other caravans were shocked by the sight of Northgard Castle. In their minds, this small territory in the northern wasteland should be even better than the countryside in the north. However, when they arrived, they realized that although the town was small, it was unusually clean and tidy. The roads were all paved with stones. There were drainage ditches on both sides of the roads. There was no stench of feces in the air. All the houses were neatly arranged. It had a different kind of beauty to it. Everyone was informed of the rules before entering the town. It was the first time they heard of such complicated rules. Many of the guards and mercenaries found it hard to accept. Which city had a rule that one must walk on the right when walking? What was a small, broken town like this? In the end, after the 2 barbarian axe warriors taught the restless mercenaries a lesson, all the caravans agreed. They couldn't do anything about it. Who would have thought that the 2 barbarian warriors could take out more than half of the guards and mercenaries of a caravan? After knowing the strength of Northgard Castle, even the managers of the caravans became obedient. After a show of strength, the caravans were arranged to stay at the trading market. Su Luan did not have much interest in the arrival of the caravan. He was now busy building the water supply canal. The water supply canal from the river was gradually lowered. The starting point of the canal by the river was about half a meter lower than the end point of the reservoir. The closer it was to the town, the higher the ground was. The less work there was to do, and the faster the construction was. After casting mud to rock on this section of the water supply canal, Su Luan rode his black-maned horse to the tavern. During this time, he would sit in the tavern for a while every day. After all, the tavern's attributes said that there was a chance to attract some heroes here. He was going to try his luck at the tavern. If he met a hero, he would make a profit. After arriving at the tavern, Sulen realized that the tavern was very lively today. The tavern that could hold 80 to 90 people was full. Luckily, the tavern was a 3-story building. There were still many empty seats on the 2nd floor. Su Luan asked for a glass of rum, and then found a corner and began to observe the guests in the tavern. But to his disappointment, although there were many people in the tavern today, these people were either guards or mercenaries. He didn't find any special people at all. These mercenaries liked rum very much. Although it was twice as expensive as ale, it was still very popular. It seemed that rum could be sold for a good price. Chapter 86. The white sugar trade was discussed in Sullen's Lord's castle. The next morning, the managers of the 8 merchant guilds came together. Chris sat lazily on the sofa in the main seat. Her seductive demeanor stunned the managers of the merchant guilds. Some of the managers were even more embarrassed. Ahem! Fernan, who recovered first, reminded them with a dark face when he saw the ugly behavior of the others. Everyone looked a little embarrassed when they recovered. However, as old foxes, their skin was thick enough. They pretended as if nothing had happened and continued the discussion. "Welcome to our Northtown castle. The conditions are simple, so please bear with us," Chris said with a smile. "We have 500 pounds of white sugar to sell this time." 500 pounds of white sugar? That's quite a lot. How about the trade and the price? Fernand nodded. He did not wait for Chris to answer and continued. "We can buy all of these goods. We have discussed the price. We can give you a high price." Fernand's expression was as if he was sure the other party could only accept it. Chris picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. She did not say anything. Sulen had expected this. They had even discussed the solution. Seeing that Chris did not say anything, Fernand thought they had agreed. He continued in the same tone. "Your town is too far away from Cult City. Every time you come here it costs a lot. So you have to give us a discount on the price. Of course, we will also compensate you. If your town needs any goods, we can help you transport them. The price is negotiable. Our 8 merchant guilds control 60% of the trade in Cult City. We have enough power to meet your requirements." "Oh, then what do you think the price of white sugar should be?" Chris said with a mocking smile. Fernand and the others looked at each other. They were secretly proud of themselves. She was indeed a country bumpkin. As long as she showed off her muscles, they would admit defeat. "Ahem, we have discussed it. 35 kinner for 500 pounds of white sugar is a good price," Owen said. Chris did not answer. Instead, she looked at the other managers. However, no one else spoke. "Very well, I know what you mean." Chris nodded and put down the teacup. "But we have a better way." Then he stood up and said with a smile, "This batch of 500 caddies of white sugar will be divided into 5 portions. All the stewards of the Chamber of Commerce can bid, but this time we will be using a closed bidding method. Everyone, there is a sign on the table. Write down your price on the sign and hand it to me. In the end, we will choose the 5 caravans with the highest prices to trade with. As for the 3 caravans with the lowest prices, I'm sorry to have made you come here for nothing," Crazy said with a smile as she played with a small leather whip with her jade-like fingers. "By the way, let me remind you that you only have one chance." After saying that, she winked mischievously and then returned to her seat calmly. "That's impossible. We will never agree to trade in this way. Never." Just as Chris finished speaking, Fernand, who was still elegant just a moment ago, couldn't help but shout. As the manager of the largest chamber of commerce in Cult City, he had always been the one to set the price. No one dared to refute him. Who would have thought that he would fail in this remote and desolate place today? "Mr. Fernand, what's wrong? Are you not satisfied with our arrangement?" Chris said with a smile. However, her tone was as cold as the wind from the northern wastelands, sending chills down one's spine. Fernand opened his mouth when he saw Chris's beautiful face. In the end, he didn't say anything. "Who else has an opinion? You can leave now." Chris looked around. She was filled with an oppressive aura. The atmosphere in the living room became abnormally heavy. After waiting for a while, no one stood up to leave. "Looks like no one has an opinion. Then let's begin. Write down your prices on the board. After a while, we will send someone to collect them." Seeing that no one was leaving, Chris chuckled and returned to her seat. The 8 managers glanced at each other and exchanged a few polite words with each other before picking up their pens to write down their prices. However, this price was not easy to write down. If they wrote it too low, the other companies might write it too high. If they wrote it too high, they might end up wasting their time here. If they wrote it too high, they would not be willing to give up. Therefore, these people didn't start writing. Chris leisurely looked at the conflicted expressions of these merchants. In her heart, she was full of admiration for her master Sullen's method of bidding. Just a hidden bid had easily defeated the alliance of these 8 Chamber of Commerce. The hidden bid method didn't give these people a chance to unite. Moreover, there was another benefit. Those Chamber of Commerce who were originally afraid of Fiery Bird Chamber of Commerce and didn't dare to compete with them didn't have any misgivings this time. After about 15 minutes, A few barbarian girls came in and collected all the hidden bids written by these merchants. Chris picked up these hidden bids and started to examine them. Chris didn't immediately announce the results. Instead, she asked all the managers to go back and wait for the news. She then took the hidden bids and left the living room. "Owen, how much did you write?" A manager pretended to be nonchalant and asked. 35 kinner. We agreed to give them this price. We can't change it, Owen said unyieldingly. Robert, what about you? Of course, I firmly support the price we agreed on previously. Not a single copper kinner can be added, Robert said righteously. His expression was like that of a knight who was expressing his loyalty to the king during a knighthood ceremony. Yes, we should unite. We can't let these country bumpkins take advantage of us, another manager said loudly. Hearing these people's words, Fernand nodded to himself. It seemed like this time it was in the bag. After the managers left, Chris started to look at the hidden bids. The highest bidder offered a price of 80 kinner. Chris took a look and saw that it was actually Owen from Bohemia Chamber of Commerce. In second place was Robert with 78 kinner. The lowest bidder offered a price of 65 kinner. This was more than double the price of 35 kinner that they had agreed on previously. Among the top 5 Chamber of Commerce, the lowest bid was 73 kinner. The average price was 76 kinner. The 500 caddies of white sugar sold for at least 38,000 kinner. Chapter 87. The next day, Fernand looked at the other 5 caravans trading with the Northtown Castle. Owen, didn't you say that you were going to give me 35 gold nars? Fernand said angrily. Sorry, Mr. Fernand. Maybe I remembered it wrong. Owen didn't feel embarrassed at all. He gave the kinner to the staff next to him and took his men to load the goods. Fernand knew that he was fooled by these people. He couldn't take revenge even if he wanted to. What gave him a headache now was how to explain it to the Chamber of Commerce. Sulen looked at the embarrassed woman in front of him. He didn't expect that his recruitment order would recruit a hero. Today, when he was casting mud to stone on the canal, a horse came running from afar. When he got closer, he found that there was an injured woman on the horse. The woman's face was covered with a veil, and her eyes were shining like stars. Although her entire body was wrapped in a large black cloak, one could still see the graceful curves of her body. Her back was simply bandaged with a bandage. At this time, the bandage was already oozing blood. Obviously, the running just now had caused her wound to split open. Help me! After saying that, she fell down from the horse. Sulen quickly reached out and caught her. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have met an injured hero. Helping her can increase the success rate of recruitment. The recruitment order effect has ended. Sulen didn't expect that the recruitment order would only recruit one hero. He wanted to recruit some barbarians or other powerful races to increase the number of troops in the town. He didn't expect that there would only be one hero. But since the recruitment order effect had ended, he couldn't regret it. Seeing the injured heroine, Sulen called a carriage and was ready to carry her in. Her wounds were simply bandaged, and her veil was rubbed to one side, revealing a beautiful face. When Sulen gently carried her, her delicate eyebrows frowned unconsciously, and then she calmed down. He reached out and picked her up. He could easily feel the elastic skin of the woman in his arms, which made his heart flutter slightly. There was a faint fragrance on the woman's body. The carriage stopped at the Lord's castle. Sulen carried the woman inside and found Chris to check her injuries. To Sulen's surprise, the succubus was very interested in the woman. After checking her injuries, Sulen cast a physical healing spell on her. Light green life energy entered her body, and the hideous injuries on her back quickly healed. However, although her injuries had healed, her face was still very pale. Having Chris stay behind to take care of her, Sulen returned to the outside of the city to direct the construction of the aqueduct. After a period of construction, the slaves were already familiar with this work. They just had to wait until the end to cast a spell to turn mud into stone on the aqueduct. After finishing today's work, Sulen went to the barracks to have a look. The barbarian boys who had not yet reached adulthood were already receiving training here. When they reached adulthood, they could directly join the army. Sulen even planned to set up a reserve system in his territory in the future. This way, even if the army suffered losses, it would be quickly replenished. It would not affect the combat effectiveness of the army too much. After inspecting the barracks, Sulen felt hungry. He turned around and walked towards the Lord's castle. As soon as Sulen entered the Lord's talisman, he felt that the atmosphere today was a bit strange. Chris did not come out to greet him today. It seemed that she would have to suffer a few more plasma cannons tonight. "Master, you're back." As soon as Sulen took off his cloak, Chris came over. "Yes." Taking the towel from Chris, Sulen wiped his hands and asked casually, "Is that woman awake?" "She's awake." Chris took the towel and smiled. "Master, she's a wizard." "Wizard?" Hearing the word wizard, Sulen raised his eyebrows. He did not expect that the recruitment order this time would attract a wizard. Wizards were very powerful in this world. Of course, they were also very mysterious. Under normal circumstances, wizards rarely appeared in the secular world. They preferred to hide in their own laboratories and study all kinds of spells. "Yes, a wizard. But master, you don't have to get your hopes up. She's a wandering wizard," Chris added. Chris then told Sulen the news she learned not long ago. A few minutes later, Sulen rubbed between his eyebrows and quickly digested what he had just heard. After sorting out his thoughts, Sulen continued to say, "You mean, she's the only one left in her school of wizards?" "That's right." Chris nodded and said, "According to her, her school of sorcerers was originally a small one. After her elder was injured in a conflict with a dark sorcerer, he passed away soon after. Because she was worried that the dark sorcerers would take revenge, she left her original place and began to wander. This time, she came to the northern wastelands to collect some materials for experiments. In the end, she was attacked by 2 adult violent mountain bears. Fortunately, she was lucky enough to injure the 2 violent mountain bears and escape. She was also lucky enough to come to our territory. What luck! It was obviously the recruitment order that was powerful." Sulen complained about the recruitment order in his heart. Then he continued to say, "In other words, she's a lousy wizard?" Chris glared at Sulen coquettishly and said softly, "She's a girl. How can you say that?" Okay. She's a mysterious witch." Sulen shrugged. "Then does she have any plans?" "It seems like she wants to stay here for the time being." "Of course. She said that she's willing to serve you, the great lord." "Master, she's also an alchemist and very beautiful." After saying that, she even winked at Sulen teasingly. Alchemists were also a branch of wizards. Most wizards would take on this profession. Alchemists could use all kinds of materials to create things with magical powers. All kinds of magic weapons, armors, and magic tools in the human world were basically made by alchemists. If there was an alchemist, then the things in his warehouse could be used. The ogre heart, blood, and skin left behind by the ogre wizard he killed last time, and the heart, blood, and tiger skin left behind by the gale tiger Sulen killed. These things were very good raw materials. After being made into potions or equipment, they could quickly increase the strength of the territory. Chapter 88. Sulen and Chris went to the backyard together. Hathaway was still resting on the bed. Hathaway was the witch Sulen had saved. Although her external injuries had healed, she had overdrawn her will during the battle with the 2 mountain bears. Hello. Thank you for saving me." Hathaway stood up and said. At this time, Sulen had a clear look at her appearance. Her wine-red hair draped over her shoulders. Her white face was pale due to her injuries, but her facial features were exquisite. Her large black eyes shone like stars. Her loose robe did not cover up her curvaceous figure. The robe in front of her chest was pushed up high. Her breasts were so big that he could not hold them with one hand. He liked this kind of girl who had a big heart. Chris did not lie. Hathaway was definitely a beautiful woman. Compared to Chris's charm, Hathaway had a mysterious charm. Anyone who sees such a beautiful lady injured would lend a helping hand. Su Len said with a smile, "You are a true noble. Thank you for the compliment. Miss Hathaway, I would like to invite you to join my territory. What do you think?" "I accept your invitation." Hathaway nodded. "Ding. Congratulations to the host. You have successfully recruited a hero. You are rewarded with a silver chest. Name: Hathaway. Loyalty: 80. Profession: Wizard, Alchemist rank. Beginner Wizard, Intermediate Alchemist strength, 11 Agility, 10 Will, 18 Vitality, 13 Charm, 25 Command, 30 Characteristics, Talent Elemental Affinity, Strength and Spirit, Focus, Strength and Perception, Energy Control, Bloodline Awakening, Intelligence Skills. Magic Trick, Magician's Hand, Illumination, Hypnosis, Charm Person, Arcane Missile, Grease, Shield, Featherfall, Web, Burning Hand, Acid Arrow, Invisibility, Scorching Ray, Protective Arrow, Intermediate Alchemy Abilities. Combat Casting, Proficient Casting, Rapid Casting, Meditation, Talent for Magic Weapon Proficiency. Sword Weapon 60, Staff 95, Horsemanship 107. Note: Wizard research costs a lot of money. You need to pay her monthly salary. Seeing Hathaway's stats, Su Len was a little surprised. He didn't expect her charm to reach 25, only slightly higher than Chris. No wonder she was so beautiful. It could be said that she was one of the top beauties among humans, and she was also a sorcerer. Warlocks were also a class of spellcasters. Compared to normal wizards, warlocks were tall, rich, and handsome. This class depended on one's looks. As long as one's charisma was high enough, they could obtain the ability to cast spells. In other words, ugly people couldn't become Warlock Chi. Compared to wizards, warlocks didn't need to learn all kinds of spell knowledge, study spell models, and all kinds of spell theories. They could easily cast spells. Think about it. Every day you're hanging your head and stabbing your butt with an awl. You're working so hard to get into a good university. Next to you is someone who goes online every day, reads novels, flirts with girls, and has never done any homework. In the end, after the college entrance examination, his grades are better than yours. Isn't that very hateful? What made wizards even more envious was that the bloodline of warlocks could be passed down to their descendants. In other words, as long as one's father or mother was a warlock, then their descendants would have a high chance of awakening as a warlock. As long as there were enough descendants, there would be one or several warlocks in every generation. It only took a few generations to form a warlock family. Of course, the inheritance of warlocks would gradually weaken, unless there was a phenomenon of atavism. Otherwise, it would weaken from generation to generation. Wizards, on the other hand, had a hard time. To become a wizard, one needed to have a strong talent, a talent for spiritual strength, and a talent for learning. Only people with strong spiritual strength could learn meditation, and then learn all kinds of languages, casting gestures, spell models, and so on. Finally, they could cast spells. Let's put it this way. Every successful wizard was a top student. This class was naturally unfriendly to bad students. Therefore, it was very difficult to cultivate a wizard. Moreover, the power of a wizard couldn't be passed down. At most, their descendants would have a higher chance of becoming a wizard. It was very difficult to form a wizard family. Therefore, most wizards were trained by teachers or academies. They would find talented children from the large number of ordinary people and train them. Compared to the latter, it took a lot of time, effort, and money to cultivate a qualified wizard. Of course, since wizards had invested so much, as long as they persevered, they would gain more. Every advanced wizard had mastered a large number of spells, which allowed them to deal with all kinds of situations. At this stage, wizards could be called spellcasters. Compared to warlocks, advanced wizards could master twice as many spells as warlocks of the same level. Apart from these, the spells that warlocks mastered all came from their bloodline. Therefore, the spells they mastered were relatively simple. The casting ability of a legendary warlock was much weaker than that of a wizard of the same level. Of course, warlocks also knew this weakness. Therefore, warlocks who were ambitious and talented would often take on the role of a wizard. There were very few people who could do this. Su Lin didn't expect that the wizard he recruited would be a genius who took on the role of a warlock. The only downside was that he would have to pay her a monthly fee for her services. Speaking of which, Su Lin basically didn't pay the soldiers when he was developing his territory. Barbarians didn't have the concept of money. Most of the barbarians were slaves that he bought. Chrissy was also a succubus that he caught with his own ability. Why should he pay? As for Hathaway, Su Lin had to pay. Every wizard was a master at spending money. Although they were rich, they also spent a lot of money. All kinds of enchanted materials were not cheap, and the same went for the materials used for experiments. Therefore, the money had to be paid. Then Chrissy arranged a room for Hathaway. Because the town was simple, the best house was Sullen's mansion. Luckily, there were many rooms in the mansion, so Chrissy only needed one. By the way, Hathaway, you're an alchemist. Can you make magic tools? Su Lin suddenly asked. Of course, but with my current skills, I can't make advanced magic tools. I can only make beginner and intermediate magic tools. In addition, I need you to provide me with the materials to make magic tools. I'm currently penniless, Hathaway said as she spread her hands. Of course, there are some problems that I need to explain in advance. Making magic tools has a certain chance of failure. If it fails, more than 90% of the materials will be damaged. After all, I'm only an intermediate alchemist now. Of course, I'll provide the materials. Please don't worry about that. I'll take the damage of the materials into consideration. Su Lin smiled and said, well, today, to celebrate Hathaway joining my territory, I'm going to hold a welcome party. As you wish. Chrissy smiled slightly. P.S. Thank you to Ho Yi from Chong Yi's family for the 300 Qidian coins tip. Thank you to Say Loneliness to Loneliness for the 100 Qidian coins tip. Thank you to We'll Never Meet Again for the 200 Qidian coins tip. Thank you to A Bookworm for the 100 Qidian coins tip. Thank you to Yunjong 128 for the 100 Qidian coins tip. Thank you to 1452 and 5418 for the 100 Qidian coins tip. Chapter 89. Hathaway was now a beginner wizard and a beginner warlock. She was on the same level as a human knight. Only by activating her own life energy could she be considered a knight, followed by a grand knight, a knight commander, a conferred knight, and a legendary knight. It was not easy for a normal person to become a knight. A healthy child would need to train from a young age to become a knight squire, then a trainee knight, and finally a knight after activating their life energy. Wizards were also strictly divided into ranks. Before mastering a level 1 spell, they were considered apprentices. As long as they mastered a level 1 spell, they would be a beginner wizard, followed by an intermediate wizard, an advanced wizard, a grand wizard, and a legendary wizard. Of course, it was not easy to become a legendary wizard. Every human kingdom had at least 1 or 2 legendary knights, but the number of legendary wizards was a lot less. Basically, only the upper echelons knew their names. Ordinary people had never heard of them. As for the barbarian soldiers in Su Lin, they were barbarian hunter, barbarian warrior, barbarian axe warrior, and barbarian axe berserker. As long as the barbarians were recognized by the system, they could be promoted. The barbarians were a powerful race and were naturally stronger than humans. Therefore, as long as a barbarian reached adulthood, they could become a barbarian hunter. However, this was only the same level as a human squire. When they became a barbarian warrior, they would be equivalent to a human knight. The top military class would reach the level of a knight commander. However, although the system's military class accelerated the growth of their strength, it was difficult to level up after reaching the top military class. After the territory passed the most difficult period, the resources here were also a lot more abundant. More than half of the 38,000 kinner from the sugar trade had been spent to buy various daily necessities brought by the merchants. Therefore, Sullen's standard of living had improved a lot. Although the dinner was prepared at the last minute, there was still a lot of food. There were roasted whole lamb, steak, roast goose, and various desserts. The most popular desserts were the various desserts. It took Sulen a lot of effort to make this ice cream after he had white sugar. He added all kinds of fruit sugar to milk and then froze it with ice magic to make this ice cream. Chris liked the taste after eating it once. Hathaway also had no resistance to this ice cream. Ding! Your subordinate hero Hathaway is very satisfied with the ice cream. Her sense of belonging to the territory has increased. Hathaway's loyalty has increased by 5 points. Hearing the system notification, Sulen was slightly stunned. Just like that, the loyalty of a witch was increased. How could a meal of ice cream attract a witch? Sulen, can you give me that ice cream? Hathaway stared pitifully at the untouched ice cream in front of Sulen. Looking at her greedy look, Sulen shook his head helplessly, then handed over his cup of ice cream. Here, eat it. Thank you. Hathaway quickly took the ice cream and couldn't wait to put a spoonful into her mouth. Then, she closed her eyes with a face full of enjoyment. Her expression was very much like a cat that was being stroked. After the banquet, everyone went back to have a rest. In this era, there were few ways of entertainment, especially at night. Su Luin was very vengeful, so he took Chris back. He was going to teach this little succubus a lesson tonight. He would use the plasma cannon as much as he wanted. The house was covered with velvet, and the quilt was very soft. Ever since she started wandering, she hadn't slept in such a comfortable bed for a long time. However, as soon as she lay down, she vaguely heard some strange noises coming from outside. At first, she thought it was strange, but when she realized, Hathaway blushed and spat in the direction of the noise. Then, she covered her head with the quilt and went to sleep. However, the velvet quilt couldn't block out the noises. Although she was covered with the quilt, the noises were getting louder and louder. It was like a cat's paw scratching back and forth in her heart. The noises lasted until midnight before it finally stopped. The next morning, Sulen woke up feeling refreshed. When he was having breakfast, he bumped into Hathaway. However, Hathaway didn't seem to have slept well last night. The dark circles on her face were very obvious, and she couldn't stop yawning while eating. Hathaway, didn't you sleep well last night? Is the bed uncomfortable? Sulen asked with concern. The bed is very comfortable, but there were 2 cats outside the window last night that kept meowing until midnight. It was so noisy that I couldn't sleep until midnight. Hathaway rolled her eyes at Sulen. Then she finished her breakfast, yawned, and went back to sleep. Cats meowing? There are cats here? Sulen was a little confused. What he didn't know was that Succubi's voice had a special magic that could easily transmit the sound to Hathaway's room. Since there were wizards in the territory, they needed to build a laboratory. Because wizards' experiments often had a certain degree of danger, the laboratory needed to be built far away from people's residences. After letting Hathaway choose a place in the territory, Sulen continued to direct the construction of the aqueduct. After casting mud to rock on the aqueduct, Sulen suddenly remembered that there was still a treasure chest that he hadn't opened. While the slaves were working, Sulen opened the storage space and opened the silver treasure chest inside. Congratulations, you have opened the silver treasure chest. You have received the skill Earthspring Surge. Earthspring Surge. After use, a fountain can be created in the underground water veins, and enemies on the ground will be blasted into the air. Sulen looked at the skill. To be honest, the power of this skill was just SOSO. Consumed a lot of mana, and the damage was average. However, it didn't mean that this skill was useless. On the contrary, this skill had many uses. Originally, Sulen planned to let the Lord's Mansion use the aqueduct water. Now that he had this skill, he planned to directly create a spring in the Lord's Mansion. With this spring, even the fountain in the garden could be used. After letting the slaves continue to build the aqueduct, Sulen mounted his horse and rushed to the Lord's Mansion. Soon, Sulen arrived at the backyard. At this time, there was no one in the backyard. After spending a skill point to learn Earthspring Surge, Sulen released his mana and prepared to cast it. As his mana was cast, His power of the will merged with the ground, passed through the rock layer, and quickly found a water vein 30 meters underground. Then, he guided the water vein continuously upward. Finally, the water vein broke through the surface and directly gushed up to a height of more than 10 meters. The movement here quickly attracted the attention of others. After a while, Chris and Hathaway came, and then cooperated with Sulen to connect the fountain to the Lord's Mansion's water supply system. Chapter 90. The water supply system in the Lord's Castle had been built a long time ago. Previously, they had been waiting for the water supply system outside the city. Now that Sulen had brought in the fountain, the problem of the water supply system in the castle was solved. Even the fountain in the garden had started working. Although he could use the underground spring spell to guide the underground water to create a fountain, Sulen did not stop the water supply project outside the city. After all, when the territory expanded, the population would definitely skyrocket. He could not let the Lord dig wells for those people every day. Therefore, building a complete water supply system was the best way. Hathaway's laboratory was built very quickly. It was located in the northeast corner of the town. Sulen purposely went to take a look at her laboratory and found that it was somewhat similar to the ones he saw in his previous life. The only difference was that there were none of the various advanced equipment in his previous life. "This is your laboratory?" Sulen reached out and picked up a glass beaker. "How is it? Are you curious about the wizard's experiments?" Hathaway happily placed all kinds of strange tools in the laboratory. "There's nothing to be curious about. It's not some alchemy master's laboratory." Sulen pursed his lips and said, "Oh right. You said that you can make magic tools. I have some materials here. See if you can make them." "Magic materials? Where are they? Let me see." Hathaway grabbed Sulen's arm and asked when she heard that Sulen had magic materials. Feeling the amazing elasticity from his arm, Sulen's heart skipped a beat. He could not help but rub against her. Hathaway suddenly felt something strange in front of her chest. Her face instantly turned red and she quickly let go of his hand. Seeing that Sulen still wanted more, she could not help but step on his foot. Sorry. As a reflex, Sulen smiled awkwardly. It did not feel good to be caught red-handed. "All right, these are the materials I was talking about." Sulen took out the items from his storage space and wanted to change the topic. Sure enough, as soon as he took out the magic tiger skin, it attracted Hathaway's attention. "Stormwind tiger skin?" Hathaway said in surprise after carefully inspecting it and sensing the mana within. "That's right. How is it? Can you use this magic tiger skin to make a magic tool?" The skin of the Stormwind tiger can be made into many magic tools. The simplest one is to make blank spell scrolls and sell them to wizards. Hathaway stroked the Stormwind tiger's hide as she spoke. The hide of this high-grade magical beast naturally contains mana. It's an excellent medium for creating high-grade spell scrolls. It's very popular among magi. Of course, this is a bit of a waste. Just use the edges and corners to make blank spell scrolls. A complete tiger skin like this is too extravagant. "I have two plans for this Stormwind demon tiger pelt." Sulen leaned back in his chair and crossed his legs, looking like he was listening attentively. "Tell me about the two plans." "One is to use the Stormwind tiger pelt to make a cloak, and the other is to make a leather armor." Hathaway sighed as she felt the rich mana within the Stormwind tiger pelt. "What's the difference between a cloak and a leather armor?" Sulen asked. "A cloak made from the Stormwind tiger pelt can be enchanted with haste, featherfall, and camouflage. These three spells can be used once a day, and then it needs to be recharged before it can be used again. As for a leather armor, it has less of an effect. It can increase magic and physical resistance, and it can also be enchanted with lesser strength or lesser haste. The cloak is made of a larger material, almost twice as much as a leather armor. This kind of tiger skin can be made into about 12 to 15 pieces, and about 30 pieces of leather armor. Of course, no matter what you do in the end, you have to leave a piece of this Stormwind tiger pelt for me," Hathaway said. "What do you want the Stormwind tiger pelt for?" Sulen was a little surprised. I don't have a wizard's robe yet, Hathaway said confidently. This Stormwind tiger pelt is thick and warm, and it can be enchanted. Of course, I have to leave a piece for a wizard's robe. All right, I'll leave a piece for you. As for the rest of the Stormwind tiger pelt, half of it can be used to make leather armor, and the other half can be used to make a cloak. Sulen thought for a moment, then continued, enchant the leather armor with haste. Sure, but this is a lot of work. It'll take me a long time to finish it. Hathaway nodded. Then, as if she had thought of something, she quickly asked, by the way, since you have such a complete set of Stormwind tiger pelt, do you have the other parts of the Stormwind tiger pelt as well? Yes, do you want them? Sulen asked. Hathaway said, to make leather armor and cloaks, you need to carve runes on them. The most suitable material for carving runes on a Stormwind tiger pelt is its blood. Carving runes with its blood will have a higher success rate. I have quite a lot of blood stored in the Lord's Castle's warehouse. I'll have Chris send it over to you later. By the way, do you know what to do with the Stormwind tiger pelt's heart? The heart, can be used to make potions, but I've only made low-level potions. I haven't made any mid-level potions with the heart of a Stormwind tiger pelt, so I can't guarantee the success rate. It's fine. It's okay if you fail. Just treat it as practice. Sulen waved his hand casually. I still have the skin and heart of the ogre shamans. I'll give them to you when you're done with them. Ogre shamans? Hathaway looked at Sulen in surprise. Ogre shamans? What about them? Ogre shamans are at the level of great wizards. You killed them. Great wizard level. It's okay. Sulen didn't take it to heart. Hearing Suren's words, Hathaway was speechless for a while. What did he mean by not bad? That was the level of a great wizard. As long as it advanced one more time, it would become a powerful legendary monster. Why did he say that it was similar to a gnoll? The heart and skin of the ogre shamans. I can't handle these materials, but I know what kind of tools they can be used to make. What kind of equipment can they be used to make? Sulen was interested. There aren't many things that can be made from the skin of the ogre shamans. The best ones are the ogre strength bracers and the ogre strength girdle. The ogre strength bracers and the ogre strength girdle can both increase strength by 2 points. When combined into a set, it can increase strength by 6 points. The maximum strength increase won't exceed the strength of an adult ogre. The strength of an adult ogre was 16 points. This meant that the maximum increase from this set of equipment was 16 points. A novice knight with 10 points of strength would become a Hercules with 16 points of strength after equipping this set of equipment. However, this set of equipment was useless to Sulen. Chapter 91. An adult barbarian's strength was around 12 points. After leveling up, the best barbarian berserker strength was around 18 points. The ogre set had limited effects on them, but it was effective on normal humans. Could be sold for a good price. The ogre heart could also be used to make magic potions, but Hathaway couldn't make them. Here are some demon materials. Claws of claw demons. Deal with them as you see fit. Sulen took out various materials from his storage space. Wait, how many materials do you have? Did you rob the Marquis of the North's treasury? There are so many materials. Seeing Sulen taking out materials, Hathaway widened her eyes in shock. Although the materials in front of her weren't particularly precious, they were worth at least 50,000 kinner. How many monsters did he have to kill to earn that much? She thought about how she was almost ambushed by the mountain bear when she was looking for materials. She was almost buried in the wilderness. In the end, Sulen took out so many magic materials so easily. It was too much of a blow. There are so many materials. Are you trying to exploit me like I'm your coolie? If you don't want to, I'll take them away, Sulen said with a smile. Don't even think about it. Now that they're here, they're mine. Hathaway snapped her fingers, then controlled the magician's hand to put the items away. Take out everything else, Hathaway said after putting the items away. Oh, right. I have a leaf from the wisdom tree. Sulen took out the wisdom tree leaf that he had obtained last time. What? A leaf from the wisdom tree? After seeing the leaf in Sullen's hand, Hathaway immediately pounced over and hugged Su-Len. She reached out to take the leaf. Su-Len only felt a ball of soft meat pouncing on him, and a pleasant fragrance wafted to the tip of his nose. Foul! You're crashing into me. Didn't you think I was exploiting you just now? Su-Len flipped his palm and put the wisdom tree leaf into his storage space. Where are the leaves of the tree of wisdom? Let me see. Hathaway grabbed Sullen's hand and asked, Is it important to you? Sullen's eyes lit up. Very important. Very important. Hathaway nodded like a chick pecking rice. I see. Su-Len nodded. When he saw Hathaway hanging on his body, he said decisively, No. You. Hathaway glared at Su-Len angrily. Her chest swelled with anger, making her look fierce. What about me? I'm your employer. Hathaway seemed to have thought of something. She gritted her teeth and whispered into Sullen's ear, Why don't I marry you and you give me the leaves of the wisdom tree? Get up first. Su-Len lifted Hathaway's tie and lifted her off his body. What do you want the leaves of the wisdom tree for? You'll give it to me if I tell you, Hathaway said angrily. Don't talk about conditions. Slap. Su-Len slapped Hathaway's perky butt. He had wanted to do it for a long time and finally found the chance. Hathaway looked at Su-Len with a wronged expression. She then pouted and said, The leaves of the wisdom tree can be used to make an awakening potion. It can increase my spirit and speed up the recovery of my mana. There are no side effects at all. I see. Then you can make it. Su-Len nodded and took out the leaves of the wisdom tree. Seeing the leaves of the wisdom tree, Hathaway immediately took it and stared at it with glowing eyes. How many bottles of awakening potion can be made with this leaf? One leaf can only make one bottle. Also, you can't just use the leaves of the wisdom tree to make the awakening potion. You need other ingredients. Luckily, although the other ingredients are expensive, they are not too rare. I have them all. With this awakening potion, I can become an intermediate wizard. Hathaway said excitedly. Not bad. I'm a man of my word. Hathaway did not want to waste any more time. After she chased Su-Len out of the lab, she immediately began to make the awakening potion. After leaving Hathaway's lab, Su-Len continued to instruct the slaves to build the aqueduct. After finishing his work for the day, Su-Len habitually came to the pub for a drink. As soon as he sat in front of the bar counter, Manager Wright whispered to Su-Len, Monseigneur, a strange person came to the pub today. Really? How so? Sullen's heart skipped a beat and asked, I don't know, but I have a feeling that this person is not simple, Wright said in a troubled tone. Su-Len took a sip of wine and asked, Where is he? The corner by the window on the left, Wright said. Go get me another glass of wine. Su-Len looked in that direction and saw a man in his 30s sitting in the corner. He then turned his head and said to Wright, Monseigneur, please wait for a second. Wright quickly brought over a glass of wine. A familiar prompt sounded in Su-Luen's ears. Congratulations, host. A wandering hero has appeared in your tavern. You can try to recruit him. Pub currently one wandering hero. Taking the glass handed over by Lighter, Su-Luen picked up the glass and walked towards that person. New here? Su-Len put the glass in front of the man and sat across him. Yes. The man turned his head and glanced at Su-Len. At this time, Su-Len realized that the man in front of him was blind in one eye. Try this rum. Tastes pretty good. Su-Len gestured to him. Thank you, the man said coldly after taking a sip. I am the lord of this territory. Are you interested in joining my territory? Su-Len continued, not minding his cold tone. You are the lord? Hearing Sullen's words, the man looked at Su-Len seriously. Yes. Why is there someone else pretending to be me? I heard that the lord of this territory is very powerful. I want to compete with you. If I lose, I will join your territory. The man nodded and said, You want to compete with me? Su-Len looked at the man in front of him with interest. Yes. Okay. Then come with me. Sulen led the man out of the pub and walked to the military camp's field. "By the way, what is your name?" "Harrison." The two soon arrived at the field. Sulen stood in the middle and waved at Harrison, indicating that he could attack. Harrison did not hold back. He pulled out his sword and rushed over to Sulen with a sweep. Sulen blocked it with his spear easily. Harrison was not surprised. He followed the momentum and cut down at Sulen's finger. Sulen smiled. He shook his spear and pushed Harrison's sword away. Then he swept over. The battle was without suspense. Harrison was no match for Sulen at all. P.S. Thank you to Longxian, WZ11114, and NetDreamer for the 100 starting point coins. Floating Dream thanks you. Chapter 92. After trying a few times, Harrison realized that he couldn't hurt Sulen at all. After understanding the difference between him and Sulen, he simply admitted defeat. "Since you have admitted defeat, then join my territory," Sulen said as he put away his spear. "Ding! Wandering Hero Harrison requests to join your force. Do you accept?" "Accept. Congratulations to the host for successfully recruiting a hero. 1 silver treasure chest is rewarded. Name: Harrison. Loyalty: 75. Profession: Silver Eagle Swordsman level. Knight Strength: 16 Dexterity, 17 Spirit, 11 Constitution, 16 Charm, 10 Command, 75 Features. Talent: Intermediate Tenacity, Robust, Intimidation, Strong Will, Courage, Vigor, Dexterity, Vigilance, Discipline. Retired Officer. He used to be an officer in the Army of the Kingdom of Florence. Command +2, Discipline +4, Veteran. He has experienced many cruel battles and survived successfully. He is an elite warrior with +2 skills. Silver Eagle Swordsmanship, Crusader Swordsmanship, Combo / Triple / Tackle, Shield Bash, Air Combo / Defensive Block, Dual Wielding Weapon Detection, Combat / Interrogation. Weapon Proficiency: Swordsmanship 145, Shield 130, Spear 135, Horsemanship 130, Bow 88, Throwing 82. This is an excellent officer. He had to escape and become a mercenary because he was inadvertently involved in the political struggle of the upper nobles. You need to pay him a reward every month. Officer. After seeing Harrison's attributes, Sulen thought that he was very suitable to be the sheriff of the territory. Although his strength was not outstanding as a hero, as long as he was willing to spend time, his strength would steadily improve. Now that the territory and the Chamber of Commerce were trading, many mercenaries and guards came to Sulen's town. Although the town became more prosperous, it also caused the security of the territory to deteriorate. He was going to appoint a sheriff to manage the town's security and punish those who violated the rules. Harrison's appearance just satisfied Sulen's requirements. "Welcome to the North Castle," Sulen said with a smile. "It's an honor to serve you," Harrison said with a knight's salute. Sulen opened his storage space and opened the silver treasure chest. A burst of spiritual light dissipated, and 2 pieces of tempered steel appeared in his storage. After that, Sulen appointed Harrison as the security officer of Northtown Castle and formed a security team. The members of the security team were selected from the mercenaries and trained in the military camp for a period of time. The mercenaries Sulen had hired in the past had all settled down here. A few of them had even brought their lovers over to live here. Harrison recruited 30 security officers and formed a security team. Of course, the strength of these vigilantes wasn't high. Even after undergoing military training, their strength was only at the level of night squires. Only a few of them had reached the level of novice knight. Their professions changed from mercenaries to soldiers. North Fortress Recruits, North Fortress Guards, North Fortress Elite Guards, North Fortress Elite Guards, North Fortress Iron Eagle Guards. Compared to a powerful race like the barbarians, human soldiers were much weaker. The elite guards were only at the level of knights. Moreover, the cost of training a soldier wasn't small. In addition, they had to pay extra. The North Fortress Guards were paid 2 kinner, while the elite guards were paid 5 kinner. Similarly, Sulan's barbarian guards also had to be paid. When the territory was first developed, Sulan promised that as long as the territory was developed successfully, he would give them the status of free people. Therefore, Sulan didn't have to pay those barbarians for a period of time. However, once the territory was on the right track, he had to pay them. According to the system standards, the barbarian warriors weren't cheap. Of course, compared to their strength, it was still worth it. After all, they couldn't be hired in the human world with hundreds of kinner. The security team was set up and trained by Harrison. Sulan marked out an area in the town as the official residence of the security department. At the same time, he also asked the blacksmith to make special weapons for them. The security department's jurisdiction was within the territory, and the security team were all humans. They didn't have the strong bodies of the barbarians. Most of the people they faced were thieves or mercenaries who violated the rules of the territory. They didn't need the heavy armor and giant axes of the barbarians. The security team was equipped with light armor and chainmail. Their weapons were also long swords. Although these weren't the best, they were enough to deal with the guards and mercenaries of the caravans. Security Department. A simple security official's residence. This is the headquarters to protect the safety of the territory and fight crime. Security +5, popular +3, law +3. With the establishment of the security department, the prison was also built. Unlike the security department, the prison had to be rebuilt. After all, a prison was different from a normal house. The good thing was that the prison didn't need to be too big. Those who committed the most heinous crimes would be sentenced to death. Only those who committed less serious crimes would be locked up there. Under Sulan's mud to stone spell, the construction was completed very quickly. Prison. You should be glad that you're only locked up. You still have a chance to change. Reformation +10, life of repentance +10, indestructible +10, psychological deterrence +10, prosperity -1, security +5, criminality -2, law +2. After the prison was completed, it was recognized by the system. Sulan specially brought a few humans in to inspect it. As soon as they entered the prison, they felt that the atmosphere was oppressive. It didn't feel good, as if there were invisible things staring at them all the time. At the same time, it reminded them of the things that they regretted in the past. It definitely wouldn't feel good to stay in there for a long time. However, it was the best place to lock up criminals. This place was used to lock up criminals, not for them to go on vacation. After touring the prison, the faces of the few humans behind them were a little pale. When they came out, they looked at the prison with fear in their eyes. Obviously, the prison had left a very shocking impression on them. These two guys would probably involuntarily think of the prison whenever they wanted to commit a crime in the future. Most likely, they would be honest. With the expansion of the town, the number of residents and officials in the town would increase in the future. With that, all kinds of crimes would definitely increase, especially the corruption of officials. In Sulan's plan, this place was to encourage business. When the time came, there would definitely be officials who couldn't help but take advantage of the situation. This was the real world, not a game. Those officials weren't NPCs and wouldn't make mistakes. Sulan was considering whether to let the residents and officials experience the prison every once in a while. Judging from the behavior of the few humans just now, this prison was still very intimidating to criminals. Of course, in addition to the prison, Sulan would also make strict laws and supervision departments. Chapter 93. After the police department was established, they caught a few drunken mercenaries causing trouble on the streets on the first day. They were then thrown into jail by the police. After they sobered up, they were handcuffed and sent to clean the streets or to do manual labor. With the existence of the Public Security Bureau, the security of the territory suddenly became a lot better. During this time, Sulan had purposely spread the news to the other provinces in the north. Many civilians who wanted to own a piece of land knew about the Northgard fortress. However, due to the distance, they could not cross the wilderness even if they wanted to, unless they were escorted along the way. In order to attract more people, Sulan made an agreement with the merchants that came here to trade. He asked the merchants to bring along civilians who were willing to come here every time they came here. Of course, in order to make the merchants do their best, he specifically asked that only civilians who brought along more than 50 people were qualified to participate in the sugar trade. Of course, this would make the merchants unhappy, so Sulen compensated them by giving them a kinner reward for every person they brought along. It did not cost them much to bring the civilians along. Other than being responsible for some security issues, they were responsible for their own food and lodging. They could also use their spears to defend against monsters when they encountered them. After some consideration, the merchants agreed. From the second month onwards, the population of the territory began to slowly increase. The local lords did not care much about the loss of the civilians. After all, the people who left were all homeless. If they stayed, the city could not provide enough jobs for them. These people could only steal to survive, or they could become mercenaries. To be honest, mercenaries did not have a good reputation. Many mercenaries were part-time robbers in the wilderness. Some mercenaries would even attack their clients directly. After they did it, they would move to another place. Therefore, most merchants would have their own guards and mercenaries. Therefore, the lords would not stop the refugees from leaving. Instead, they would clap their hands and welcome them. When the refugees came to Sulen's territory, they were as poor as a church mouse. Sulen would not be kind enough to directly distribute land to them. There was a saying in his previous life that went like this: a small amount of kindness was a small amount of hatred. If Sulen directly distributed land, houses, and food to them, these people would probably think that these things were what they deserved. Once Sulen stopped providing them with help, they would even think that Sulen owed them. Therefore, Sulen didn't plan to do this at all. From the beginning, he planned to use work as a form of relief for these people. In any case, there were many people in the territory who needed to work, so he didn't have to worry about not being able to arrange for these people. Sulen would let these people work and pay them wages. They could also rent houses in the territory. Of course, they had to pay rent. The rent would not be very high, but it was necessary. When they went out to work, they would be given 2 meals. In this era, other than the nobles, the commoners only had 2 meals a day. The territory did not keep idle people. The civilians who came with the caravan were a mix of good and bad. Some of them knew their place, while others were idling around. Sulen did not need to do anything for these people. He just threw them to the kobold or knoll supervisors, and the supervisors would teach them a good lesson. These people would work in the territory for 3 months, and then they would be qualified to buy houses and land, or the right to reclaim wastelands. Reclaiming wastelands here needed to be reported in advance. As long as one paid a kinner, they could get the right to reclaim 10 acres of wastelands. These 10 acres of land would be tax-exempt for 3 years. After 3 years, the tax would return to normal. Houses could be rented, and if one had the money, they could also buy them. Therefore, in Sulen's territory, as long as one worked hard, they would live and get better and better. These people who lived at the bottom of the food chain worked hard more often than not, but they could not even afford to eat and wear. With the addition of population, the territory became more and more lively. In addition to white sugar, the rum in Sulen's territory also began to be sold. This kind of refreshing and sweet rum became very popular as soon as it appeared. Therefore, several chambers of commerce were fighting for a share of the rum sales. Because rum was brewed from waste honey, the cost of production was not high. In order to sell it at a high price, Sulen made a new packaging for the high-quality rum. Because of the growth of the territory's population, Sulen built a glass factory by the Red Sand River. He used the river sand to calcine the glass. At first, he was worried that the quality of the calcined glass would not be good. He did not expect Hathaway to be so good at making glass. Thinking about it, as an intermediate alchemist, making glass was too easy for them. With Hathaway's guidance, Sulen's glass factory successfully produced qualified glass. After the packaging, the price of rum naturally increased. However, rum was not irreplaceable like white sugar. Therefore, Sulen wanted to let the chambers of commerce help to sell it, but he still had to pay a lot of price. However, these efforts were rewarded. Soon, the rum would become another important source of income for the territory. The glass factory was handed over to Chris to manage. Sulen found something interesting. Chris was actually a management genius. As long as she managed something, there would not be any mistakes. Therefore, Sulen planned to learn management from Chris. However, after seeing Chris's management methods, he directly gave up. There was no other way. This was a matter of talent. As long as Chris used her advanced charm, basically everyone would become her lackeys. Those people worked as hard as if they had been injected with chicken blood. If Sulen was a little black-hearted, he would not even give them a salary. After seeing Chris's management methods, Sulen directly gave up. He could not learn the advantage of talent unless he was willing to cross-dress and get an advanced charm talent. Hathaway had been cooped up in the lab all this time. She only appeared for a short while to bake the glass. Now, she was completely focused on making the awakening potion. She did not make any of the magic items that Sulen asked her to make. Fortunately, the awakening potion was finally completed. The awakening potion was stored in a magic crystal bottle. This kind of magic crystal bottle was specially used to store advanced magic potions. As long as the bottle was not opened, the potion inside could be perfectly stored for about 500 years. The awakening potion was a blue-purple translucent liquid. The inside of the liquid was like a starry night sky, constantly flashing with spiritual light. It looked very beautiful, and the attributes of the potion were very powerful. Awakening potion. Using the leaves of the wisdom tree as the main ingredient, meticulously made into a magical potion. After use, will +4, elemental affinity +2, mana recovery effect permanently increased by 30%. Side effects? None. This potion was completely for wizards. Could even change the physique of a normal person, allowing them to learn magic. P.S. Thank you to Qingji and 2 other book friends for their 500 Qidian coins tip. Thank you to Changyi's Ho-E, Mature and Steady, Jessa 1111, and book friend 1612200050555989 for their 100 Qidian coins tip. Chapter 94. Hathaway needed a quiet environment to take the potion, so Sulen specially prepared a quiet room for everyone in the castle. He also arranged some barbarian guards to stand guard outside. Hathaway's advancement went smoothly. Sulen could clearly feel the elemental energy in the surroundings gathering towards the room. After about 3 hours, the situation finally calmed down. After another 2 hours, the tightly shut door opened. Hathaway walked out of the room with a face full of joy. When she saw Sulen and Chris, she immediately jumped towards them in excitement. I did it! I'm an intermediate wizard now. Hathaway hugged the 2 of them and yelled in excitement. Took a while for her to calm down. Sulen also opened Hathaway's status window to check. Name: Hathaway. Loyalty: 95. Profession: Wizard. Alchemist rank: Intermediate Wizard. Intermediate Warlock. Intermediate Alchemist strength: 13 Agility. 12 Will. 23 Vitality. 15 Charm. 23 Command. 30 Characteristics. Talents: Intermediate Elemental Affinity. Strengthened Will. Focus. Strengthened Sense. Energy Control. Bloodline Awakening. Intelligence. Mana Regeneration Skills. Magic Trick. Magician's Hand. Illuminate. Hypnosis. Charm Person. Arcane Missile. Grease. Shield. Featherfall. Web. Burning. Hand. Acid Arrow. Invisibility. Scorching Ray. Protective Arrow. Intermediate Alchemy. Potency. Elemental Resistance. Fly. Fireball. Lightning. Summon Magic Creature. Freeze abilities. Combat Casting. Proficient Casting. Rapid Casting. Meditation. Magic Talent. Spell Maximization. Weapon Proficiency. Sword Weapon 60. Staff 95. Horsemanship 107. Note: a wizard's research costs a lot of money. You need to pay her every month. This time, not only did her wizard profession level up, but her sorcerer profession also leveled up. The power of her bloodline had improved her physical fitness, and her will had improved the most. It had increased by 5 points, 4 of which were from the awakening potion, and the other one should be from her advancement. At the same time, her talents and skills had also changed. Her elemental affinity had leveled up to intermediate elemental affinity, and she also gained mana regeneration. Mana regeneration was the effect of the awakening potion. Some of those spells were not learned before because of her strength, and some were obtained through the further awakening of her warlock bloodline. Sulen rubbed Hathaway's head and messed up her wine-red hair. "All right, the advancement is complete. Hurry up and make those magic items." Well, in the past it was at most, but now it has become people. He had completed the leap from C to D. Hathaway escaped from Sullen's clutches and hid behind Chris. "Sister Chris, look at this greedy face of the nobles. I just advanced and they can't wait to exploit me." Chris smiled and said, "All right, it won't be too late to do it after you've rested. There's no rush to make those things." "All right." Sulen shrugged. After becoming an intermediate wizard, Hathaway was more familiar with making magic items. It only took her 2 days to make a leather armor and a cloak. These 2 magic items were made from the skin of the Gale Tiger. They looked good. Cloak, unnamed intermediate magic item. Material, Gale Tiger skin. Defense +3. Warmth. Additional spells. Lesser haste 1 time per day. Featherfall 1 time per day. Disguise 1 time per day. Lesser haste. After activation, increase speed by 20%. Lasts for 10 minutes. Featherfall. After activation, reduce body weight. Won't be hurt when falling from a high place. Lasts for 10 minutes. Disguise. After activation, become one with the surroundings. Won't be easily discovered. Movement will lose effect. Lasts for 1 hour. Leather armor, unnamed. Intermediate magic item. Material, Stormwind Tiger Hide. Defense +8. Movement flexibility. Additional effect, reduce magic damage received by 10%. Additional effect, increase strength 1/day. Haste 1/day. Lesser haste. After activation, increase strength by 3. Lasts for 10 minutes. Lesser haste. After activation, increase movement speed by 20%. Lasts for 10 minutes. The 2 magic items were not bad. The cloak was more suitable for scouts, and the 3 additional spells were very practical. The leather armor was for warriors on the battlefield, and after wearing it, it would not affect ordinary equipment. Take this leather armor for example. Barbarians could wear a half-body armor on top of it. This would allow them to display the effects of leather armor and also gain the defense of iron armor. Similarly, after wearing a cloak, they could also wear a chainmail and leather armor underneath. As for why they didn't choose iron armor, it was because the scouts wore heavy iron armor. Not bad. Let's make it according to these 2 items. Sulen checked the 2 magic items. He was very satisfied with them. "I've calculated the Gale Tiger skin you gave me. I can make 6 cloaks and 10 leather armors. The rest can be cut into a few blank magic scrolls. If you agree, I'll make it according to this plan." Hathaway handed a blueprint to Sulen. "Let's do it according to your plan." Sulen casually glanced at it and agreed. "Oh right, I almost forgot to tell you. I can also make the materials from the ogres," Hathaway said proudly. Her expression was as if she was asking for praise. "Good job," Sulen praised. After nearly 2 months of construction, the water supply system in the territory was finally about to be completed. There was a 4-kilometer-long elevated aqueduct for 30-meter-tall water wheels standing on both sides of the Red Sand River, and a reservoir that could hold 1,000 cubic meters of water. Such a reservoir could easily satisfy the water needs of a city with tens of thousands of people. The water supply pipes in the territory were made of pottery. Sulen used mud to stone to connect the pipes. The water supply pipes would be connected to each house in the territory. The water pipes in the houses were made of iron. The ancient Romans disliked iron because it would rust, so they used lead to make water pipes. As a result, the pipes didn't rust, but the ancient Romans were poisoned by lead. Although this wasn't the direct cause of the fall of the ancient Roman Empire, drinking water with excessive lead for a long time would cause the people's health and fertility to decline. Ding! The city water supply system is complete. City water supply system. A water wheel is used to lift water, an elevated aqueduct is connected, a large reservoir is filtered, precipitated, and disinfected. Ceramic and iron pipes are used for water supply. Water supply plus 15, cleanliness plus 15, durability plus 20, city beauty plus 10, people's sentiment plus 2, public security plus 1, prosperity plus 5. A good water supply will make the people living here feel more at home. A clean and convenient water supply will make the city more prosperous. Chapter 95. After the water supply system was built, the town's public facilities needed to be built as well. Fountains, public bathrooms, and other things had to be built. Since they had decided to expand the town, the bathrooms would be built outside the town. The 500-meter-long town was divided into the Lord's residential area. Other than Sullan's castle, this was where the Lord's guards and their families lived. After the outer city was built, the entire place would be moved to the outer city. The new city wall was 1 kilometer long and 4 kilometers in total. It was considered a small town. The original city wall became the inner city. In order to build the outer city, Sulen brought the barbarian guards to the wilderness to capture a large number of slaves. In fact, after their continuous patrols, there were very few goblins, kobolds, and gnolls around the territory. Although these creatures were not very smart, they knew to avoid dangerous areas. Sullan's territory was now a dangerous area for the goblins, kobolds, and gnolls. If they wanted to capture slaves, they would have to go to places further away from the territory. After wiping out a few goblin and kobold tribes, the number of slaves in the territory broke through to 2,000. Suluin didn't intend to use mud to rock for the construction of the outer city wall, mainly because it was too much work. In Suluin's plan, the height of the wall was 10 meters and the thickness was 4 meters. If he relied on himself to cast mud to rock for such a large amount of work, it was estimated that he would have to do it thousands of times. Therefore, Suluin was going to build with bricks and stones. For a long time, the territory would be in a period of development and construction, so there would be a lot of bricks and stones needed. Suluin was going to build a brick kiln factory in the territory to make bricks and stones for the territory. With the sugar trade, the territory would have a stable source of income. Sulen once again sent Xion to the northern cities to buy slaves to increase the population of the territory. Now, there were more than 1,000 human slaves in the territory, and there were more than 300 refugees who came with the caravans. The population of Sullan's territory had reached more than 1,700 people. It was not difficult to transfer some people to build a brick kiln. Sulen was in a good mood during this time. With money, the construction of the territory sped up a lot. After fooling around with Chris last night, he was full of energy when he woke up in the morning. However, his good mood didn't last long. A soldier from the security team rushed over on horseback. The bad news made his face turn gloomy. Last night, 3 fishermen were killed at the harbor. Upon hearing the news, Sullan's good mood immediately dissipated. He walked towards the port with a gloomy face. The dead were slaves bought by Sulen. These slaves' job was to fish. Because the territory had been cleaned up so many times, the area around the town had become very safe. In addition, there were 2 rivers at the port. Goblins and kobolds couldn't pass through, and gnolls hated water, so the slaves would stay near the port at night for the convenience of their work. At night, they would rest on the fishing boats. Every 3 to 5 days, they would return to the shore to rest and replenish their daily necessities. In fact, these fishermen were ranked at the top in terms of points. The various types of fish caught in the harbor were the main source of meat for the territory. Because the bison needed to be farmed, they were no longer slaughtered. The spotted antelope had also begun to try to domesticate and breed them. Before they succeeded, they would no longer slaughter them. The source of meat in the territory had decreased by a lot. Now that 3 fishermen had died suddenly, the other fishermen would definitely worry about their own safety. When Sulen arrived, there were already many people gathered around. Seeing the Lord coming, the people around all moved aside. Sheriff Harrison came up to greet him. Looking at the crowd, Su Len frowned. Sheriff Harrison quickly yelled at the crowd, "Other than the fishermen, everyone else return to their posts immediately. Violators will clean the public toilets for 3 days." Hearing the sheriff's yell, the crowd scattered immediately. Su Len followed Harrison to the harbor. There were 3 stretchers at the harbor. The bodies had been fished out after they were found. When were they found? What's the cause of death? Have you found any clues? Su Luen came to the side of the corpse, and a soldier quickly lifted the linen covering it. "Monseigneur," Harrison replied, "the other fishermen reported to us this morning after they found a few missing people. After some searching, we found them. These bodies should have been dragged into the water and drowned by the senior. Look, there are many signs of entanglement on their bodies. Their faces are purple." As a veteran with investigative skills, Harrison could still determine the cause of death of these people. These people were suddenly attacked in their sleep. The enemy they met was very strong. The 3 of them could not fight back at all. After they died, the murderer even dug out their hearts. Preliminary judgment is that the murderer is not human. It should be a kind of monster in the water. The 3 victims were all adults. Because there was enough food and the bodies of these slaves were not weak, they were killed before they could even fight back. Clearly, the murderer who attacked them was very strong. Ding! Triggered mission. Host, please resolve the danger in the river as soon as possible. Did you find anything on the fishing boats? Su Len asked after checking the 3 bodies. The 3 fishing boats are slightly damaged. There's also a lot of mucus on the fishing boats. Let's go take a look. The few of them came to the fishing boats at the harbor. The fishing boats had already been towed to the shore. The 3 fishing boats were slightly damaged. There was a kind of translucent mucus in many places. The mucus was very smooth and had a fishy smell. Clearly, the murderer was a creature in the river. A monster in the water? Could it be murlocs? Su Len said with a frown. But murlocs lived by the sea. This place was at least a few hundred kilometers away from the sea. Why would those murlocs come here to kill people? No, judging from the bodies of these people, they were probably dragged into the water by tentacles. Murlocs do not have tentacles. Su Len quickly thought. Where were the bodies found? Su Len continued asking. Harrison brought Su Len to a bend in the river and pointed at a patch of seaweed. In a patch of seaweed. When they were found, the 3 bodies were all wrapped up in seaweed. Soon, the few of them arrived. As expected, there was a lot of mucus on the seaweed. Su Len and the others continued to search around and expanded the search area. Not long after, one of the soldiers found a new clue. "Monseigneur, there's mucus here too." Su Len went to check it out. There was also a lot of mucus on the seaweed. Following that, the group continued to search along the mucus. More and more clues were found. The group continued to follow the clues. After searching for half an hour, there was no other discovery ahead. The group shifted the main search area to this body of water. P.S. Thank you to say loneliness to loneliness for the 200 Chidian coins tip. Thank you to Jining for the 500 Chidian coins tip. Thank you to Heavy Dragon Rider for your 200 Chidian coins tip. Eat Well Ke for your 1000 Chidian coins tip. Heshipeng for your 100 Chidian coins tip. Old Cat for your 233 Chidian coins tip. And Chong Is Hoi for your 100 Chidian coins tip. Chapter 96. After searching for a while, they didn't find anything. Su Len frowned and looked for a long time. He had no choice but to put the matter aside for now. He turned to Harrison and said, "Give all the fishermen weapons. Also, from today onwards, all the fishermen are to return to the city to spend the night. No one is allowed to rest outside the city at night." "Yes," Harrison replied. It was already noon. The sun was about to rise to the highest point in the sky. The sun shone on the water, making it sparkle. Suddenly, Su Len saw a huge shadow emerging from the bottom of the water. "Get out of there!" Su Len took a few steps forward and shouted at the soldiers who were looking for clues on the water. Hearing Sullen's warning, the soldiers didn't even look back. They hurriedly paddled to the shore. Ding! Discovered water monster. Host, please deal with it as soon as possible. The shadow under the water grew bigger and bigger. Suddenly, the monster rushed out of the water. Under the sun, Su Len saw the monster clearly for the first time. It was a monster with a few huge tentacles. The monster had 4 limbs like a human, but below the joints of the limbs were fish-like fins. The head looked very ugly, and the body of the monster was huge. Those tentacles were at least 8 or 9 meters long. After seeing the fishing boats, it swam directly toward them. Although the water monster was huge, it was very fast in the water. In a breath's time, it was about to catch up with the fishing boat at the back. The shockingly long tentacles flew toward the fishing boat quickly. As long as the soldiers on the boat were caught by the tentacles, they would be easily pulled into the water. Whoosh! Just then, a long spear flew over and pierced the tentacle of the water monster. The tentacle was knocked away. However, for some reason, the long spear didn't pierce the tentacle. Instead, it slid to the side. The soldiers who escaped the disaster quickly left the area of the water monster. The attacked water monster roared at Su Len. In the next second, a few green water pillars that were 10 meters long rushed towards Su Len. F***CK. Is this an acid arrow? Seeing the acid arrow rushing toward him, Su Len couldn't help but say. A normal acid arrow was only about half a meter long, but the one in front of him was more than 10 times longer. Profound ice slash. A chilling aura emanated from Sullen's body, and 3 ice blades were instantly summoned. Then, under Sullen's control, the surrounding water instantly turned into ice. Then, with a flick of his spear, a huge ice shield appeared in front of him, blocking the acid arrow. The acid arrow hit the ice shield and splashed everywhere. The surrounding reeds and water plants instantly withered and turned black. Even the soil turned black. The ice shield was hit and cracks quickly appeared like a spider web. However, it was frozen again by Sullen's cold air. With a flick of his spear, the massive ice shield was instantly shattered. Countless ice shards scattered in all directions, reflecting a 5-colored light under the sunlight. Su Len did not hesitate. The chilling aura emanating from his body grew even colder, and one ice blade after another swiftly appeared before slashing towards the water Yao. The ice blade flew across the surface of the river, freezing the water surface in its path. In the blink of an eye, 3 ice paths had appeared on the surface of the river. The water Yao raised a huge wave with its tentacles and rushed towards the 3 ice blades. The ice blades collided with the huge wave, and the huge wave turned into an ice mountain. Then, the next side was smashed by the waves behind it. Sullen's body flashed and directly rushed towards the 3 ice paths on the river. In a breath's time, he was in front of the water Yao. Seeing that Su Len dared to rush over, the water Yao became even angrier. 6 of its tentacles whipped towards Su Len. Sullen's spear swept across and the 6 tentacles were swept away. However, Su Len felt as if he had missed his target. It was very uncomfortable. After the tentacles were sent flying, the water Yao circled around and whipped towards Su Len again. Su Len roared and exerted force with his feet. The ice path instantly collapsed. Su Len jumped a few meters into the air and swept towards the water Yao. Bang! The water Yao's huge body was sent flying a few meters away by Sullen's attack. This time, he finally saw that the water Yao's body was wrapped in a layer of transparent liquid. It was also because of this layer of liquid that Sullen's attacks were dodged. The water Yao's body flew out and smashed into the water with a bang. Although most of the force had been neutralized, the water Yao still cried out in pain. The stimulation of the pain made the water Yao even more confused. The water Yao waved its tentacles and attacked Su Len continuously. Huge waves several meters high rose from the surrounding river. Fortunately, the fishing boats had already gone far away. Otherwise, under such huge waves, the boats would have been destroyed and the people on board would have died instantly. Sullen's body was getting colder and colder. The ice under his feet stood firm under the huge waves. Mystic Ice Slash. The 3 ice blades froze the huge waves. Su Len exerted force with his feet and jumped high in an instant, dodging the huge waves that came crashing down from below. His 29 points of agility made his body very agile. With the help of the floating ice on the river, Su Len directly jumped onto the water Yao's tentacles. Lightning Spear. Rays of blue lightning appeared on the surface of Sullen's body. The lightning on the spear in his hand kept flashing. After a few leaps, Su Len arrived in front of the water Yao. After realizing that Su Len was close to it, the water Yao frantically tried to wrap its tentacles around him. However, in the face of the alternating lightning and ice, all the tentacles were paralyzed the moment they came into contact with the ice. The paralyzing effect of the lightning slowed down the water Yao's reaction speed by a few beats. By the time the tentacles broke free from the ice, Su Len had already rushed over. Mystic Ice Slash. Su Luen didn't give it a chance to fight back. The chill in his body instantly broke out, and he continuously released a series of black ice chops. In the blink of an eye, the chilling ice blades swept across and froze the surrounding river. Numerous black ice blades converged, and a huge iceberg appeared on the surface of the river. But the huge water monster couldn't resist and was frozen. The iceberg sparkled under the sun. In the light blue iceberg, a water Yao that was about 4 meters tall was frozen with a frightened expression. Several of its long tentacles were also frozen. The soldiers who had just come ashore looked at Su Len with admiration. They had just faced the water Yao's ferocious power. However, they did not expect that the water Yao that they thought to be extremely powerful would be killed by Su Len so easily. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have killed the water Yao. You have received 13,252 experience points. The system notification sounded in his ears. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have leveled up. You have received 2 free attribute points. You have received 2 skill points. You have received 1 silver treasure chest. Ding! You have killed the water Yao. You have received a large amount of reputation. Your name has spread across the wasteland. Your soldiers are more supportive of you. Reputation +1. Congratulations to the host. You have successfully killed the water Yao. Your territory security +2. People's sentiment +5. Su Len did not open his status window to check. Instead, he ordered the soldiers to transport the huge ice block back to the port. P.S. Sacrificing 2 books. Potioneer. There are runes, alchemy, and magic engineering. This is an interesting world. Lord of Souls. Traversing through the boundless world, hiding the souls of 10,000 souls and merging into one's body. When Lincoln woke up, he found himself in an unfamiliar world. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.